There we go. Once again, welcome everybody. We are very thankful that you are here this evening. It is my pleasure to introduce our brand new CEO, Dr. John Lopez. John, would you take it away?
Sure. Hopefully you can all hear me just fine. Cool. Thank you. First I want to say thanks to our team, Elizabeth, Kelsey, Joanna, and not present with us are Erica and Jenny. You've heard her name many times. Couldn't do any of this or what we do without them. And they're keeping me on pace and making me look better than I actually probably am. I appreciate them for all of that. Secondly, probably most importantly, I want to thank all of you for making the time. Your time is something precious. It's one of the few things that we pretty much absolutely control, so to speak. So you've chosen to spend time with us, and we appreciate that very much. As Kelsey said, we're going to have a little Q&A at the end. I'm going to run through some slides. You'll hear from me and other members of the team. We're going to get around to you. Just hold on, and we'll be looking forward to giving you whatever answers you see. So part of the purpose here is for you to be intimately familiar with who we are. It's your efforts and commitment to us that allows us to exist. So I want to tell you a little bit more about myself, and then I'll turn it over to Elizabeth, and she can share a few things about herself with you. My story, I'm going to abbreviate it, but I was born in Belize. I'm the youngest of 9. My mom took about 10 years to bring us all to this country. Though I knew English when we arrived, I still had to go through a lot of the assimilation and integration challenges that our immigrants do, not only physically, but just in a social sense that impacts the way you feel about whether you belong in a community or not. There's very much confidence levels associated with how well you can communicate or feel like you fit in. So I went through those in grade school and high school. After high school in the Midwest, I went to the U.S. Navy, went back to the Midwest for college, graduated, worked in the Nebraska legislature for a state senator. And I have to say that was one heck of an introduction to the real world and life, and a lot of things that I'll say a lot of my experiences there were just kind of precursors or previews of professional life. So did that, went and got my master's and then PhD from University of Arizona in higher education management policy. And then, having understood public education pretty well, I went to a private entity that managed several universities and K-12 schools. And so there I was exposed to the publicly traded private side of the work world. Learned a whole lot, which is very different from what we learned in working in the state legislature. So I had a variety of roles, VP of Government Affairs. I did a time as VP of Planning and Research. I taught research and statistics for teachers who wanted to go back to school, who wanted to get a certification to be principals. Did a variety of things. My journey is not linear, and actually I appreciate the fact that it wasn't. After several of those roles, I decided that I wanted to work in smaller and smaller organizations, started working in nonprofits. In 2019, I took the year off. I figured after what seemed like 60 years of work, I would take the year off and just travel and dine and not be concerned with too much. By May, I was bored to death. Took 120 days, wrote a book, got that out the door, and then started to do something a little bit more productive than sit around and eat brownies, which was fun, by the way, but could only do that for so long. So my journey led me here. When I saw the job posting for Intercambio, I just kept reading and became more and more intrigued. I tell the story all the time. I didn't know a soul at Intercambio, no one in the network. And so I may as well have been some kid on an island just with a pipe dream. And several interviews later and several months later, here I am working with this great team at an organization that just totally fit with who I knew I was and wanted to be professionally. I just hadn't run into it yet. So it turned out to be a great fit. Enough about me. Much more interesting is Elizabeth, who's a new director of development marketing. I'll turn it over to her.
John, I don't think that's true at all. I am certainly not as interesting as John. But I will share a little bit about myself. I came to Intercambio because relatedness is really important to me. And in working in fund development for a really long time, if I could have any superpower, I would want to know how to speak every language so that that wasn't a barrier to connecting with everyone that I came across. So thank you, John, for sharing the floor with me for just a moment. I started as the Director of Marketing and Development just a month ago, and I'm really thrilled to have joined a team that everyone on the team is truly the best at what they do. And if you have been around and worked with us for a while, I know that you have experienced that same feeling. It's one of gratitude and appreciation. So I mentioned that I had been in fund development for a long time, about 20 years, and I have a background in social work and policy and international social welfare, and recently completed my master's degree at Columbia University in social work and was a graduate fellow at the Council of World Women Leaders, which was a wonderful experience. And although I work through a social work lens and a fund development lens, making lasting connections and building those relationships with our supporters and volunteers is something that I truly value. And I just want to thank you again for coming this evening, and spending your time with us is truly meaningful to us. And thank you, John, and back over to you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So we're going to scroll through some slides here relatively quick. The richest part of interacting is the questions that we have for one another. So we'll get to that, but I want to scroll through a few things here. Here's our mission. And as you all know, for the last 21 years, this is kind of what we've been doing and committed ourselves to. And Leanne reminds me all the time, we don't just teach English. We create connections, we do all these great things and so on. So I feel obligated to say all of those great things that we do beyond simply teaching them. And on the flip side of you being teachers, learning a language as well. So, whenever we go to a new community, one of the first things we want to do is figure out how we can best fit in. And language is absolutely a part of it. Not only fit in, but make the most of the experience for both the learner and the teacher. So that's essentially our mission in the Intercambio way. We all, I think, live it, embrace it, and appreciate when we are on the receiving end of that. I'm going to turn over to Lee a little bit more about our program services and the core of who we are and how we do what we do.
All right, thank you, John. Well, good evening, everyone. It's great to see you all here tonight. My name is Leanne, and I'm the Director of Curriculum and Training for Intercambio. As many of you know, we have our own curriculum that we developed within the organization called Confidence and Connections. And of course, this is a curriculum that is used to teach English. We are a program that teaches English. That's what we do. We teach English to adults, but the way in which we do it is very special. And the curriculum that we have developed really makes English language teaching accessible to community volunteers. And so that is really what sets us apart in this field, and is what is shared among all of our programs. So John, if you can go ahead to the next slide, we have our local Boulder County program, which has been running for more than 20 years now, and is really at the heart of everything we do, because it has given us the experience that goes into all of our curriculum, all of our trainings, all of our programming. Again, we're teaching English, but we're also building communities. And there's a lot that goes into that. So we often talk about the Boulder County program as our lab, and we use what we do in the lab to inform everything that we're doing nationwide. And in the past few years, we've also really been focused on our national program. So when the pandemic hit, we expanded our very successful one-on-one program in Boulder County to a national audience. So we were able to open it up through a platform that was developed really specifically for our program to participants around the country, both volunteer teachers and English language learners. And we now have CC English. So that has been very successful. And we've seen a lot of the same wonderful results from our local program now at the national level. And then apart from that, we also have our National Intercambio Network, which are, for the most part, community-based organizations around the country, such as immigrant centers, churches, and libraries. Again, most of these programs are working with volunteer teachers. So volunteer teachers is a special niche because they may or may not have a teaching background, but they come to us with heart, and they come to us with the passion for building community and learning about other perspectives. And so we are able to offer them this Confidence and Connections curriculum that really helps them to deliver English classes in a quality way. It really takes the best practices of adult language acquisition, but in a really accessible way that also allows volunteers to be involved. So this is a little bit of what we do and how it's all connected from our curriculum to our local program and then nationally. Thank you.
Thanks, Leanne. So I'm going to touch on the impact a little bit. There are a couple of slides here with impacts, and then impact in the next one, in my mind, is probably more telling. These are some simple data points in terms of 600, a little over 600 participants in Boulder County. And CC English, Leanne mentioned, over about 121 pairs of learners and students. The curricula sold, that covers a lot of bases in terms of, we have a lot of guides, we have pronunciation fun, and just a range of learning materials. You see that number is pretty healthy and growing. In terms of Intercambio network members, we have different levels of membership from neighbor, friend, and family. And that 453 number reflects over 360 cities across the country. So we're starting to get out there and become known. Paid members are those at the friend or family membership levels. And there are different levels of access to materials and support. This slide is probably more telling. It's the more human side, the more actual impact of what we do. You see there that nearly half of our teachers learn something. So Leanne mentioned the mutual and two-way learning. That's one of the features that sets apart the way we go about teaching English. And then the other side is, for students, I think the bottom graphic there in terms of children and the impact on children is something that I think many of us can empathize with, and the importance of doing that kind of work. So one of the things that often comes up, what are we talking about now? Where are we going? We're in the midst of this strategic planning process where we're defining what growth means. As you know, it can be perceived as any number of things, whether it's number of network members, student impact, participants in Boulder County, financial sustainability often comes up. So we're talking about what does that really mean to and for us. There are foundational principles of growth, meaning as we grow, which has already been decided that we do want to magnify our impact, we do not want to lose the core and the integrity of how we got to where we are. So that's what foundational principles speak to. And there are several of them that we keep in mind as we go through the planning process. And obviously looking 2, 3, 4 years down the road, there are aspirational successes that we strive for. The first of which is, we know we can't do this without you, without volunteer teachers who are at the heart of the model and the way we provide our services and programs. A diversity of network partners you'd seen before, the churches, non-governmental organizations, libraries tend to be among the highest percentage of the types of partners that we have. We want to see a diversity in that. So expanding beyond what we've found successful, obviously continuing to nurture that, but then find new organizations and new ways of expanding our impact. Increase financial stability. Obviously, that's important. We've been very fortunate to have the support of our donors, funders, and so on. But we do so with an eye toward how can we continue to be better and strengthen ourselves financially. And then we do have we've had an online conference, but it would be great, in my opinion, if we could host an in-person conference in a few years after having the impact that we intend to have. Just getting all of our stakeholders and students and supporters here in person together would be, I think that would be the culmination of years of work and just a great event. So I was fortunate enough to attend the graduation ceremony, and this is a snapshot of that ceremony. We had one of our level 4 students playing the guitar, and the teacher read the lyrics to Imagine. The group read them together, and then we ended up in song. And I believe that Kelsey's going to share that link with you in her follow-up email, and I would strongly, strongly encourage you to listen. It's only a couple minutes, but who doesn't like the song Imagine, and to hear by John Lennon, and to hear a group of students at the end of their class singing it in unison. It's a cool moment, cool moment. This is where I turn to the development professionals and professional in particular for Elizabeth to do what she does.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. Well, I want to give you just an idea of really what Communitas has meant to Intercambio this month. Thank you to our generous donors who have really supported us during Colorado Gives Day. Our quarterly revenue goal was to reach $350,000. And at present, I am very humbly proud to say that we are a little over halfway there. To date, we've reached $179,000 towards our goal, and that funding will go directly towards the next 6 months of classes at Intercambio, building connections and deepening relationships and truly strengthening our community, and especially here at Intercambio. So I want to make a very special ask. If anyone here can help us reach our goal, if you can take out your cell phone, because every dollar truly matters. And if you feel compelled to make a gift this evening, you can use the camera function on your cell phone and scan the scan to give code in the presentation. And during the presentation, we have a very nice match, and every dollar will be matched during the presentation. I also want to share that at Intercambio, we're working to create true life-changing connections between community and our volunteers and English learners. And in the photo here is a wonderful student of our learner with us, Guillermina. And like Guillermina, she says that working with her teachers gave her greater confidence and ability to support her children. It truly made a difference in her family and in getting her family into the right high schools and into college. And her son, Edgar, is a college graduate now and is actually on the board of directors at Intercambio, helping us to continue creating impact for families like theirs. And as a nonprofit, we can only do this work with the support of incredible donors and volunteers like you. And we truly appreciate your consideration. Thank you. And Joanna has included a link in the chat for scanning the code if you need that as well. So thank you. And my email, if you have any questions, is elizabeth@intercambio.org. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I look forward to getting to know you better. Thank you, John. Back to you.
Thank you. As promised, we want to hear from you. It's all we have to share. So any questions, comments, recommendations, please feel free.